On behalf of the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, we welcome you to New York Wines Online, Wine and a Healthy Lifestyle with Cathy Huyghe. While we wait for everyone to get logged in, we would like to review a few logistical details. If you find yourself with streaming issues, please limit other internet users in your office or household. You may need to close all other open browsers, or you may also find it helpful to log out and log back in with Firefox or Chrome. We have two forms of communication for today's webinar, the chat and Q&A sections. The chat is an informal way for you to communicate with other attendees. Please be sure to select all panelists and attendees in the drop-down field, as it can default to panelists only. Additionally, we have the Q&A section. This is a way for you to ask questions of our on-screen panelists. Please be sure to enter any questions for the panelists into the separate Q&A section. We will do our best to get to all of the questions at the end of the session. Today's webinar is being recorded and streamed to Facebook Live. The recording will be available to all attendees after the webinar. To begin today's webinar, I would like to introduce you to Cathy Huyghe. Cathy is an award-winning journalist and entrepreneur and an engaging public speaker. A two-time graduate of Harvard University, first from the Graduate School of Design and then from the journalism program, she transitioned to a career in wine after working successfully on negotiation projects in the Middle East. As a journalist, Cathy was shortlisted in 2019 as the Louis Roederer Columnist of the Year for her Forbes column on the business and politics of the wine industry, and she won the Born Digital Wine Award in 2020 for Best Interview for her article on misogyny in the wine industry. As an entrepreneur, Cathy co-founded Enolytics, which provides data-driven business intelligence to beverage alcohol companies around the world. Cathy is also the co-creator of content for A Balanced Glass, a community dedicated to wellness in the wine industry, which was a 2019 Drinks Innovator for 750 Daily. She is also a certified yoga teacher and a certified teacher of mindfulness meditation. We look forward to her expertise and direction with today's topic. Cathy, I hand the mic to you.
Good morning, and thank you, Rebecca and team, very much for pulling together this remarkable just session and topic and conversation, as well as this group of panelists and guests. It is an honor, really, for me to be here because it brings together so many things that I think are of value to our industry, of value to New York State in particular, and also to our future, to our collective future, and the wellness and the health of the industry moving forward, as well as the wellness and health of ourselves as individuals. Let me start by inviting our panelists to come on and introduce I will introduce the lineup and the expectations for today. Roman Roth, the winemaker and partner at Wölffer Estate Vineyard, as you very widely recognized and familiar face to most of you, I'm sure. Kim Marconi and also Paige Vinson, who are the winemakers at Three Brothers Wineries. Kim Marconi since 2018, and she's joined today by Paige. And Colleen Hardy, who along with her husband, Sebastian, founded Living Roots Wine and Company, joining us as well. So let me introduce the way that we will proceed with the tasting today and just sort of the format of the tasting. We will taste through the 4 products, starting with Roman's and going to Kim and Paige's and winding up with Colleen's. We'll do it in sequence and one at a time. What I would love to do is to invite the speakers to also comment about what it is specifically around their product, around this specific product that we'll be talking today that demonstrates for them how this contributes to a healthy lifestyle. as a wine consumer, as a wine professional, what is it specifically about the nature of what they have put in front of us that speaks to that value in terms of a healthy lifestyle? Rebecca, would you like to share some slides? Thank you. Great. So here we're starting with the wine map of all of New York's wine regions. And what I'm particularly interested in, this will be familiar to you, but what I also wanted to point out was the location not only of the wine regions, but also the fact that we're talking about apples today. We're not only talking about grapes, we're also talking about apples, especially from around the Rochester area. So what I'd love to do is dive in with our first product. That would be from Wölffer Estate. And Roman, let me invite you to take yourself off mute. And we're going to be looking at the Low Rose cider. So what I would so let me sort of show you that this is what it looks like and what we're looking at. And Roman, let me sort of kind of start. My first question to you is we're all sort of unscrewing our bottles, our glass bottles right now. Do you, and this is sort of a basic question, but do you want me to pour it in a glass or do you want me to drink from the bottle? What do you think?
I prefer the wine glass so you get the aroma of this.
Okay.
Very proud of the aroma. Yeah, I mean, we try to make something at Wölffer Estate. We are in a region from Long Island, which is surrounded by the ocean. And we have this cooler sea breeze with 2.6 miles from the ocean. And our wines, I'm here, the winemaker since 1992. And we've always made these elegant, light wines. They were fresh, they were, and this was at a time when people wanted big, fat Californian wines. So it was something that was always, natural, that we have less alcohol in our wines. Maybe to make a Riesling with 11 volume percent, or our Rosé at 12 volume percent, 12.5. And even our top biggest red wine we make has 13.5 volume percent alcohol. You barely find that in a hot climate. Everything is over 14, 15. And so that's I was thinking our DNA, it's our region, it's the style. And seeing this is about health, finally people have come around and realized that less is more. And when you find people, I mean, we have customers who, due to medicines, can't drink anymore. I got a wonderful email, and they're so happy that they found something that she's a big wine lover. We've done some blind tasting. She has always did excellent results. So really somebody who enjoyed wine but can't drink it anymore. And she's loving our non-alcoholic, for example. We make a non-alcoholic sparkling wine. So This is the motivation and the incentive. And I think myself, it started off, we'll talk later about it with the Verjus, that, when I walk through the wine cellar or through the tasting room, I have a glass of wine in my hand. Everybody thinks, boy, the winemaker, he can hold his liquor. Yet I'm drinking non-alcoholic sparkling wine. And it's healthy. You feel better. You don't want to be the best customer in your own liquor store, my mother used to say. So you have to be sure that you can, stay focused and be alert while working and spitting, of course. But this is for people to enjoy. This is we make a lot of rosé. This is another thing, I think, why this is a very growing trend, a growing wave, a health wave, where apple wine, apple ciders are becoming fashionable, and it's young people who really embrace these kind of products. While sort of some older guy, I want the real stuff. I hear that. But you want people to be open-minded and not just Francophiles. I only drink Bordeaux. I only drink Burgundy. And that's our customer anyway, because we make wine here in America, in New York. We're proud about that. And so this is a natural progression. We started with cider many years ago. We had a small apple orchard here on the farm, but it has grown into something amazing, where last year we picked close to over 16 million apples by hand. And I think that's the secret in this, that we don't use concentrate. We don't use bucket loaders. It's not shipped from France or something as concentrate over here to make this. It's from New York apples, hand-picked, very pure, very clean. I mean, those crisp, fresh apples that you get at the farm stand, this is what we're using. We pay a lot extra for our apples, but quality costs money. And as a result, you know, you have something like this. This is a blend. It's either red, Jonah Gold. There is some Crispin. This is one of the main varieties, some Golden Delicious. So all these fruit aromatic apples, not hard cider apples that are much more bitter and have a, you know, it's a whole different wine to make out of those hard cider apples. I want fruit. I want elegance. I drank way too many bad ciders when I grew up in Germany, which are funky and stinky and old barrels. So
Yeah.
Wanted to make a fruit-driven product.
Roman, I would love, you have pointed out and already pointed to several of the themes that I'm hoping that we get to today. One, in terms of the different ways that we can perceive how these products address the question of a healthy lifestyle. You've mentioned someone who, it sounds like she might be a little bit older, can no longer drink alcohol the way that she used to. Also the way that tastes change. And also the way that maybe a younger audience is looking for something different, something lighter. So it sounds like you have seen each of those sort of angles around a healthier lifestyle and why this has hit the market for you for Wölffer Estate.
And we embrace it. I mean, some people, they don't want kids in their winery. You know, like we've made a conscious decision. Let's be open to young people. Let's make it friendly for young people. And it's paid off, I think, you know, that luckily we are a family-owned winery, which can make these maybe more risky decisions to produce something. There's not some insurance company, you know, whatever, CFO telling me, no, there's 3% too little profit margin in this. We're not going to do it. So we can take more risk, make quick decisions, try things, and throw them out there, and you know, without major marketing research. We have a gut feeling, we see something, these apples look great, we got to go for this. And so that's what we do.
Right.
And I think people enjoyed it.
It definitely seems that way. I would love to invite Colleen and Kim and Paige to offer some comments on their perspective of how they're tasting this first offering from Roman. But I'm also want to point to some of the notes that we can see in the chat. Patricia says that it has more red fruit than golden apples, lovely pale pink color, but still appley, which is appropriate for ciders. Very elegant and attractive. And Phil says that it falls between a light rosé and a light cider. Again, the word elegant, very fresh and acidic, Patricia says as well. Love the acidity. So Roman, let me.
Yeah, I think you want that because, you know, here we really try to make low row for low calories and low alcohol, and it's a rosé. Anything I touch turns pink is the local joke, of course. So, you know, as we are very well known for rosé, we wanted to make this a rosé as well, so that you can enjoy your glass of rosé and only drink 3.2 volume percent instead of 12 volume percent, 11 and a half. So, so that's it. It's that, you know, we use water to make this spritzer. So we use reverse osmosis filtered water and have, you know, clean upstate New York water. The apples come from Williamson, from a beautiful farm in Rochester. And so it's so pure and fresh. I think that's it, and not too sweet. I hate the over-sweet, over-cloying. A lot of cheaper apple ciders are sweet, super sweet. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people like sweet, but this is more sophisticated and more food friendly. It doesn't overload you. It doesn't, you know, stuff you with sweetness. So it's just cleansing, and you want, you know, refreshing.
Yeah, thank you. Colleen and Kim and Paige, would you like to comment on this and share some tasting notes for Roman?
I mean, the thing that I immediately thought was the food friendly aspect. The acidity is just so lovely and ethereal, and I think it would go with so many foods. Even, you know, on the heels of had a baby last year, and looking for something that was low alcohol or no alcohol to go with food was almost impossible. Ended up with a lot of seltzer. So this would be a nice alternative to that.
Yeah, and I, you know, kind of to that end, I also think that it's a beautiful option for a seasonal beverage as well. I think that a lot of people gravitating toward rosé or cider, they're looking for something refreshing, light, to be able to enjoy, out and about on a warmer day. And I think it hits all of those boxes, just as Roman said, without being cloying, which can often weigh that freshness down.
Thank you very much, Kim. I feel as though and Colleen, excuse me, I'll get right to you. I just wanted to comment that Kim brings another perspective to it, which is sort of expanding the consumer base for who would be interested in a low alcohol or no alcohol product. Pregnant women who are nursing, women who, for whatever reason, related to pregnancy or childbearing, are steering away from alcohol. I think that sort of expands the audience base as well. Yeah, and the food friendly component for sure. Roman, just real quickly, have you noticed? Can you see at Wölffer Estate some rises or falls of the sales of this particular product seasonally?
It's definitely growing. It's slow and steady. It's not in a monster wave going up. Again, it may have to do with the price. It is $4, I think, a bottle. A lot of the sweeter, cheaper ciders cost $1.99 and whatever. So you're hitting a more selective market, I would say. As a result, the sales are growing, but they're not. You're not taking over millions of cases and whatever. Anyway, not that. Got it. Anyway, but quality comes first. So it would be. I think it's just. It has. The thing is, there's nothing worse when you want to have an alcohol-free wine or something and all your friends look at you, what's wrong with you? And they shame you almost. This is still happening all the time. And I think it takes a while to become cool that non-alcoholic, low alcohol wines, all the wines that we'll be tasting later here, that this is a cool thing to do and that it's fashionable and that you can do this with pride and not just that just because you're pregnant or because you shouldn't drink any alcohol. I love drinking one glass of great champagne and then I drink some non-alcoholic for the next hour or two and then maybe one more nice glass of champagne. It makes me happy and feel good about it. And that it takes a while, it takes a momentum that people really feel comfortable stepping outside of the normal.
And I think maybe we're getting there. Having this conversation today and having this on the schedule and having it out there and the people interested in tuning in, I feel like that is maybe an indicator, I hope, Roman, that we're heading in that direction. Colleen, can you please share some thoughts? Thank you for waiting.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just going to comment on, I agree with sort of the refreshing nature of it. That's what, struck me to begin with. But it also has some really nice sort of texture and mouthfeel, which I love. It kind of adds complexity and just having that dry finish for me, this is what I would want to be drinking. And so, yeah, I love the mouthfeel, the dry finish, and, still the refreshing nature of it that it keeps making me want to go back for another sip. So.
For sure. Yeah. And I want to transition next to Kim and Paige, but in the meantime, Patricia also commented, Roman, that it's better to have exceptional quality than inexpensive price. So let's stick with the quality over cheapness, if you please. Thank you. Kim and Paige, let's please transition to your Mimosa product. Three Brothers Winery, made from Gruner Veltliner. It's a Mimosa Spritzer. Alcohol level is 5% from the Finger Lakes, and it's priced at $12.99 for a 4-pack. Can you please tell us about this? Tell us about this Mimosa Spritzer, why you created it, and what sort of contribution you think that it makes to the healthier lifestyle sort of theme that we're seeing.
Sure. Yeah, I think Roman touched on the more youthful push towards healthier options. So that was kind of the entire premise for this, and also an accessible for all palates type of product. Also the reason we went with Mimosa, because brunch is super fun, and the can theme as well. So the entire premise was a lower alcoholic product that you could take to your concert or on your boat and feel good about having a couple of them and not necessarily worry about yourself later in the day. So
yeah, I don't know how familiar the Three Brothers profile, our portfolio, is to everyone, but we have an array of products. But I think that there's been a big push recently to have more of these lower alcohol, more accessible products. And that can be a little bit difficult for the wine industry, right? A lot of what we focus on, particularly here in the Finger Lakes, is cool climate, full alcohol wines. And we really wanted a way to bring the aromatic profile of Finger Lakes wines to people in a more accessible option, kind of showcasing the diversity of the aromatics.
Yeah, and that actually begs a really interesting question, Paige, and thank you for bringing it up. Have you felt any pushback from the industry, sort of around you, from your neighbors, from other people throughout New York, who are saying that, maybe you're quote unquote diluting sort of the market for regular alcohol wines from the Finger Lakes?
I mean, we've heard it all at varying points in time. But I wouldn't say we've actually gotten any pushback on this product. I think what we've actually gotten is more of an appreciation for exploring the spectrum that Finger Lakes wines can showcase. I think that most of the people at the forefront of wine production here are pretty supportive of seeing how much we can push the industry and knowing that we're not maybe at our absolute best yet, and we want to see what else we can do and how we can reach a new market and new consumers and get them interested in Finger Lakes wines. Right.
It's super interesting to me the way that low alcohol and no alcohol wines is expanding the market for wine, reaching out. I think it feels like a very sort of generous and obvious and commercially successful, savvy way to engage people and maybe kind of move them through the cycle of full-bodied wines, full alcohol wines. Phil Keeling, who works for Wine Folly, asked a question on this topic. He says that we get a lot of pushback from their readers, from Wine Folly readers, anytime canned wine is brought up. Do you have any recommendations or tried and true talking points that have helped you convert the glass-only crew?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, nothing tried and true because, again, this is a relatively new product. But always my go-to is, well, taste it and then tell me you hate it. If you can get it in a glass, if they don't want to drink it out of the can, usually I'd like to think that the quality of the Finger Lakes winemaking or New York State winemaking in general is going to shine. I mean, there are people who won't try a full alcohol Gruner Veltliner because they've never heard of it or can't pronounce it, but you put it in their glass and you can change minds. So that would be my go-to.
Yeah. And to that end, I think that it's much the same way screw caps on wines sort of had some pushback initially. I think that it's a packaging choice that might not be understood at first. But all that takes is education, right? Ultimately, this is meant for a very particular kind of environment. It's meant to make wine more accessible, particularly in places where a glass and a glass bottle might not be. So it fits a niche for sure. But I think the more that we can educate people on the versatility of some of these products, the more successful they'll be.
Yeah, thank you. And Colleen and Roman, I would love your thoughts on any kind of perspective you might have on that around canned wine, but also even like smaller format bottles like this. Yes, it's glass, but it's still smaller format. It's screw cap. Any thoughts on that from either of you?
Colleen, you want to go first?
Sure. So we have, I guess on smaller format during COVID, because our tasting room is in downtown Rochester. And so even pre-COVID, our tastings were always as a flight format kind of vibe, feels more like a wine bar. And so when we, were shut down, we started bottling little 187 ml bottles and put them in 4-packs. And so people could do a tasting flight at home. And we just saw people really enjoying those as an option to, you know, have wine without having to open a 750 ml bottle, or being able to try a few different things, or, you know, you're drinking with people who all want a different wine or style. And so I think, you know, a smaller format makes it more easy to justify for people opening something when they're not sure if they want more than a glass or two. And so we saw a lot of success with those. And so we've recently been working on some canned wines ourselves in Australia, where we also make wine. And so we haven't released them yet. So I can't say, you know, what the reception of that will be, but we're hoping, you know, even as consumers ourselves, that just the convenience, and, you know, if you're going to the beach, or, you know, like Kim and Paige were saying, you're going to a concert, on the boat, you know, whatever the circumstance is, where you just want to grab something that's easy and accessible. And, you know, rather than people turning to spritzers, we'd rather keep them in wine and, you know, be able to offer our products at just a little bit more of an accessible format and price point. And so that's something we're excited about doing, but we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Right. And Roman, let me get to you in just a second, but I wanted to just kind of hover for a moment around the fact, and Colleen, thank you for bringing up Australia, because that's actually a common point in your biographies, that you and Kim and Paige, forgive me, I haven't seen your biography yet, and Roman have those time spent in Australia. So understanding sort of the commercialization angle and the compare and contrast part is super, I think, super interesting that shared common space that you have. Colleen, your point around, you know, tasting room and flights also, I think, brings up an interesting point of contrast that Paige said earlier, which was thinking of the mimosa as a brunch wine, right? It's not just something to go, right? It's actually something that you're sitting down in a brunch location. You are perhaps ordering it off the menu. So again, that is it's a different occasion, right? We often think about these low alcohol or no alcohol options in terms of demographics, but it's also interesting to think about it in terms of location, where you are when you're drinking it. On a picnic, sure, or outdoors, or on a boat, but also sitting down at, you know, in a tasting room or in a brunch location to eat. Paige or Kim, is there anything more that you wanted to add on that point before we switch to Roman?
I think, you know, just to sort of hover on the fact that we, you know, the brainchild, I suppose, for this line, for this product in the first place, was really trying to find an easy, fun way to engage, you know, a demographic that might not yet be involved in wine and in Finger Lakes wine. You know, we found that Mimosa is recognizable, right? It's a flavor profile that I think people are familiar with. And so it's an easy point of access for people that might be brand new to wine. But then it's also, it brings some lightness. It brings aromatics that people who enjoy Finger Lakes wines or other aromatic wines can enjoy as well.
I think you hit the quality. I mean, the mimosa, you hit the flavor perfectly. It is, I mean, you know, a lot of people use cheap prosecco to make their mimosas, and this, I think, the quality is there. You get a nice wine-like feeling in the mouth, but you have this perfect orange. It's really nice. And I think to the whole point that you made is, I think you have to be innovative in your own, you know, you have to find your own path. I mean, I grew up, my father already knew how to make the best wine, and what are you, whippersnapper, going to tell me what, you know, this has been done already. And when you're in the new world in Australia, where you worked, or here, you know, you have this freedom in some ways. I mean, when we started our ciders, everybody who we asked, you need to have twist off, don't do a screw cap, that's crazy, it gives the wrong message what this is. You know, don't do a 4-pack. We wanted a 4-pack and not a 6-pack. You can't sell 4-packs. Everybody, literally, whatever the price that we picked, the quality that we wanted, you will never sell. I mean, now we sell 100,000 cases of cider, 24 packs. And everybody, literally, if we would have listened to any of them, we would have never started the whole project, I think. So you have to be,
that's a really good point.
follow your gut feeling, and also with sizes. I mean, we did that from the start. When you're a young region and you have to, fight your way up there to break the prejudice. I mean, we would make magnums. I made 375s, but nobody else. Oh, I don't have the tool. It costs too much. I'm sitting on it. We always stuck the neck out to try to anybody. Hey, if other people don't make 375s, why don't we make 375s? And it's for wine in this case. But in any case, that's the message. I think push what other people don't do and push it.
Yeah, well, it's sort of the definition of an innovation, right? We'll never know if we don't stick our neck out, and try it. I also wanted to point out sort of the tasting notes around the mimosa. Patricia says that the Gruner Veltliner's white pepper shows through, which is really interesting. And Roman, you had mentioned the orange as well. So there's, just because it's low or no alcohol doesn't mean that we lose all of the character. And I feel like that's a fear that is worth sort of, addressing head on. It isn't that we can't experience any of those sensory things that we love about wine just because the alcohol is either reduced or removed.
But it was so taboo. I mean, putting orange flavor in my wine. My master would turn around in his grave if he knew. But and as a result, even when you study enology, they don't teach you, it's not food science or whatever. So you're really sort of in the dark a little bit. In some ways, you're a great winemaker, but you have to really step out of your comfort zone in order to try to make something. Adding water to wine, can you imagine?
Right.
Thing, but
I think that's an excellent point that Roman brings, that it's, we both have fine wine backgrounds as far as production. We make fine wines. But I think to really embrace winemaking in the Finger Lakes or anywhere, you have to be willing to try something you're not familiar with, and you have to be willing to say, this might not work, but there might be a chance here to make something accessible to a group of people that otherwise we wouldn't have hit with, with products that were more traditionally oriented towards. Sure. So
right.
I think the Finger Lakes and New York, these cool climate regions are really exceptional at being willing to take that risk and say, hey, we're gonna, we believe in the quality of the products that we're using, and we're gonna transfer that in a different way and make that available to people, in a non-traditional option.
You don't have eight generations looking down on you, meaning you can't do that.
No. Let me kind of wrap up sort of this segment before we move on to the next product. And say that there's a couple of questions coming through, but in the meantime, Rebecca had flashed some pictures around Three Brothers Wineries to underscore the point of what you all are doing to promote the healthy lifestyle. This, I think, is a will run for wine race that you're doing through the vineyards, and it just looks like this is exactly who you're trying to embrace, but also how you're going about that. Just the outdoors, the athleticism as part of a healthy lifestyle as well. Great. Lisa asked a couple of questions. How does the secondary fermentation occur in the mimosa, and is it Charmat or infusion?
We're actually so we're canning this product, so we put it in a bright tank, and it's a force carbonated product. CO2 and head pressure situation going on.
Yeah, so much the way you would, produce a beer and carbonate that prior to canning. It's an identical process to that.
Okay, great, thank you. Let me transition, please, to the Petit Rosé and Roman, this is going back to you. So alcohol-free juice beverage is what it says on the label. So Petit Rosé Verjus Spritzer, 100% Pinot Meunier from the North Fork of Long Island, 0% alcohol, and $4.50 a bottle. So Roman, please go ahead and introduce us to it, and then I'll ask for others' tasting notes.
Well, this is a Verjus-based product, which is very dear to my heart. I started this in 1996. Where we made Verjus in a 750 bottle. It looked very wine-like. And it was just originally made for cooking, you know, that you have this, basically you pick the grapes at a very unripe stage. So you have this vibrant acidity, and it's much easier, it's much more gentle to cooking and to use than lemon juice. Or if you're cooking with wine, you have bitterness and tannins. If you're cooking with lemon juice, it can be a bit aggressive. Or if you're cooking with vinegar, it is volatile. And so if you want to make something, you want to still serve a beautiful bottle of wine and not interfere with the aroma of the wine, Verjus is the perfect salad dressing, perfect sauce making. During the week when you have no time to make a major sauce, you just, you know, stir fry your flounder for 2 minutes and you put in 1 cup of Verjus and you're done. You only need some rice and you're in business. So it's great. Chefs use it. Le Bernardin in the city is a big customer. We have some great restaurants. So again, it's our food-friendly connection that we've had with wine. It was a natural to try to make something like this. And well, after a while, it turned out that a lot of people were drinking the Verjus instead of cooking it with it, and basically use some Pellegrino or some seltzer and make their own little spritzer out of it to cut the acidity a little bit and just make it a little lighter. And finally, Joey, Mark, the owners, the young owners that we have, we decided, why don't we make a ready version, all blended, already finished spritzer. And that's where the Petit Rosé, again, it's pink, came into life. And it's just, yeah, a fun product. It has, you know, Pinot Meunier is a lovely variety where you don't have to deal with, again, with too many tannins to start with. It's nice fruit driven. And I'm very thrilled with this quality, with the quality of this. Again, it takes a lot of talking. People don't know what it is sometimes. So the curve is slow and steady, but it's fun to convince and to bring people to new ideas and they enjoy.
Yeah, we're looking at some of the pictures from the beautiful estate, Roman, and I would love to hear from you how. And I love the story of the Verjus and sort of the connection with the food community and with the chefs. So my question for each of the panelists is always, how does this product specifically contribute to what we're seeing as a healthy lifestyle? I feel as though the food connection is a big part of the answer, but maybe distinct from the first of your offerings that we tried, Roman. How does the Verjus specifically speak to what is happening in terms of a healthy approach to alcohol right now?
Well, in this case, it has basically zero because it's just juice that we quickly filter, cold sterile, so it's not pasteurized either. Hate is a strong word, but I'm not a friend of pasteurizing Verjus because it gets a little cooked, it gets a little brown, it's not as fresh. So we filter it, we keep it chilled to 33 degrees Fahrenheit for a week, settle the juice, and then filter it cold sterile without any pasteurization. And that's what keeps that fresh berry note, as if you're biting into a cluster type of thing, that feeling. So yeah, no alcohol. That's the whole point of this, that there's kids, again, so many people who do not want to drink and feel left out. I mean, that's why I actually chose a sparkling wine glass. I have a couple of friends, when we have a birthday party, everybody cheers with a champagne, basically. In this case, a non-alcoholic Verjus, but you're certainly part of the whole, of it, and you don't have to feel embarrassed or left out.
Mm-hmm. I would love to hear from Colleen and Kim and Paige on their tasting notes and their response to this. But in the meantime, Roman, I would imagine that Wölffer Estate, I hope Wölffer Estate has put together some recipes, some very sort of Verjus friendly recipes that we could reference and we could find online. Yeah.
There might. I have to look myself. I haven't been on
okay.
for a while.
You've already mentioned a couple.
We have a wonderful marketing team. You can't make great wine or great products by yourself. You need a team. And so we're very fortunate to have a fantastic management team and the staff that goes along with it.
Great. Thank you. Kim and Paige and Colleen, would you like to weigh in on some tasting notes?
I gotta say, the very first thing that I noticed, the aroma is such an intense reflection of pressed grapes, right? Which it might sound simplistic, but there's an aroma with fresh pressed grape juice that
harvest is
Exactly.
coming.
I seriously was just thinking, it gave me a little bit of like, oh my God, harvest is coming.
Exactly.
It's almost September.
I put my nose in my glass and I looked at Kim and I was like, it's harvest. Like, it smells like harvest.
I thought the same
Which I think is like a beautiful, you know, that echoes back to a beautiful thing that I think wine does, right? It can be very, it transforms a space, a time. It takes you back to something that's recognizable. And so I think, you know, it's fantastic that you've managed to bottle that and give that that opportunity to someone who might not want to drink alcohol or isn't able to drink alcohol. They can still participate in that story, which I think is really special.
For sure. This is what an incredible thing to capture and give to someone who's not normally on a crush deck.
Right.
That's so
right.
fun, in my opinion. It's like one of my favorite smells, other than fermenting wine, but you can't really bottle that and give that to someone. So this is
That is definitely the nugget of an idea for your marketing team, Roman. Sort of, you know, to share the crush deck experience, you know, with somebody. Colleen, you had some other things that you wanted to say about this as well.
Yeah, so I definitely agreed. As soon as I smelled it, I was like, oh my gosh, this just takes me back to, you know, takes me right into the harvest mode. And that's something that we would drink, you know, in the winery ourselves, is just like fresh pressed juice, add some soda water. Cause you know, we're like now with seltzers everywhere and lemon, you know, adding lemon to sparkling water and whatever. This is just such a great way to do it with grape juice or verjus in this case. And so I love this. I think it's so refreshing. It's something I would definitely drink myself. And Seb is going to be very jealous when I show him, because he's wanted to do a product like this, but we just haven't gotten around to it. So he's going to be very excited to try this, my husband, after this. So I love it.
What a fabulous conversation starter. You know, I mean, I think it's rare to be able to have a non-alcoholic beverage prompt that kind of conversation. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
And the length is really nice. I feel like it's just like the acid and the freshness of the fruit is just lingering for a long time for something with no alcohol in it. And yeah, it's just really, really nice.
But it's like vegetarian food. I mean, 10 years ago, you were no choice, very little choices, and finally you have lots of choices. And when with wine or with any product, you're drinking Coke, 7-Up, maybe iced tea if you're lucky, maybe a lemonade, a sweet, who knows what. I mean, again, it's growing now, but a lot of sweetness still. I mean, this is fairly sweet as well, but it's a lovely alternative for sure to just the usual stuff that you have available.
Roman, commercially speaking, what is the trajectory? What is the timeline between these two wines, or between these two products? Which came first? And yeah.
The Verjus was always, was first. Verjus was first, and we made it since 96 as a regular, and then as a sparkling maybe 6 years ago. And then maybe three years ago or so, 4 years ago, we started with the low. 3 years ago, maybe we started the low row.
So fairly recently.
Yeah, that's still new.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's transition in the interest of time for sure to Colleen and to the Session Red next, which is sort of the most, I don't know, when you think about the packaging, and maybe that's a question to bring up as well, the packaging of the lineup that we've tasted today. This is sort of the most traditional looking bottle, obviously, 750 milliliters bottle. 2019, you can see on the screen the grapes that have gone into this. It's 10% alcohol from the Finger Lakes at about $20. Colleen, can you please introduce us to this wine?
Absolutely. So if you're not familiar with Living Roots, we, have a lot of your more classic styles, dry Riesling, Chardonnay, that sort of thing. And this is definitely, showing our more experimental nature. And so our Session range is a new range we're coming out with. So this wine is the highest alcohol of the Session range. So they'll all be between 7 and 10% alcohol. And again, making them both here in the Finger Lakes and in Australia, where my husband's from and where we spend, where half of our production is. So we're there every year for harvest. We go back and forth. Even with COVID, we've been able to do that, which is really lucky. And so this one is the first that we've actually bottled of the session wines. The labels that you have are not the actual labels; those we just printed like enough for today. So this one technically we haven't quite released yet, but we're really excited about it. It's a complex one, so it was definitely, you know, Seb, my husband, is our sort of head winemaker, and he loves to sort of experiment, play around. So, you know, he's sixth generation winemaker, has been around it his whole life. And I think doing these more interesting, playful styles for him keeps it really, you know, interesting and exciting. So this one, the base of it was Geneva Red, which was a variety we hadn't worked with before, but we're always really interested in especially the sustainability aspect of hybrids and how they can be, you know, less sprays in the vineyard, and really well suited to our climate here in upstate New York. And so this one, you know, really features a few of the hybrids that we've just decided to experiment with and see, you know, what sort of characters they brought. And so this one started, you know, the base was Geneva Red, and we really loved the sort of characters of the juice, but we weren't sold on maybe the characters of the skins. So this one was actually pressed off skins right away. So almost like a rosé, but then fermented on Riesling and Pinot Gris skins. So almost kind of like an orange wine fermenting on white skins. So getting some real aromatics, interesting texture from those. And then, so that was kind of the base, was this Geneva Red, orange, rosé, whatever you want to call it. And then blended in with some, you know, Blanc Frankish, Merlot, Cab Franc, Regent, and Petit Pro. So it's a real sort of mix, but, you know, with our session wines in general, we're just looking for a little bit more refined alcohol, a little more balanced, but still making them, you know, naturally. So the key for us is picking some batches early. We pick some batches at a, you know, fairly normal time. And then we also make piquette as a blending component. So if you're not familiar with piquette, it's essentially after you've pressed a batch, and you have the leftover, you know, skins and seeds that you would compost. Before we do that, we add water and ferment the skins and seeds again. So you're extracting the remaining sort of acid, texture, some flavor, a little bit of sugars. And I think it's something you'll start seeing a lot in the market. I know in Australia this year, you know, we were playing around with piquette as a blending component. So we haven't planned to bottle a straight piquette, but it seemed like every winemaker we talked to at the end of vintage was like, oh yeah, we made piquette. Yeah, so did we. So it's one of those things that I think you'll start seeing more of. And on its own, it's, you know, quite low alcohol, like 4 or 5%, and definitely like a lot of water content in there. Whereas we're using it as more of a blending component to bring the alcohol down while still bringing characters rather than just adding water to the wine. Adding this piquette portion still brings some texture, acid, flavor to the wine, but also helps to lower that alcohol. So, you know, for us, all of our wines are wild ferment with, you know, just adding sulfur. And so the session wines are no different in that aspect, but we're able to still make them, a little bit more balanced in terms of alcohol content.
Yeah, I think it's delicious, Colleen. And I love, like, to me, it's very emblematic of your part of New York State. I feel like this is sort of it can be a flag, you know, sort of like, this is New York State, right? In terms of this red wine. Yeah. I absolutely want to introduce sort of tasting notes and commentary from our other panelists. But while you're thinking about it, can I please ask you, Colleen, to elaborate more on, and I'm playing kind of devil's advocate on this. It's a wine. It looks like a wine, smells like a wine. What's up with it? Like, how are you getting to the low alcohol? It's 10%. It's not like we've not had 10% wines before, but from a technical perspective, how does this trend of low and no alcohol wine actually work? Like, what are you taking out? What are you leaving in? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So I think that's what we're really excited about with these wines, is that we're not taking anything out, and we're not adding anything other than the water during the piquette process and then sulfur at the end. So that's, you know, we think this can be basically, you know, lowering your alcohol intake without making any sort of sacrifices or compromises, it is still a wine. So if somebody wants a dry red wine, and again, 10% is not that low, like realistically, our other wines will be a little bit more extreme. So we have like a Shiraz that we made, from the Adelaide Hills, that's 8%, typical Aussie Shiraz is going to be 14, can be as much as 16%. So in that case, having, an 8% Shiraz is actually quite low. And it still tastes like an Aussie Shiraz. And so, for us, it's about really having the mouthfeel. I think that's key. So, we'll have a session Riesling from the Finger Lakes. That's again, 7% alcohol around there. And part of that is, the piquette process brings a lot of texture and mouthfeel. Leaving a bit of residual sugar, again, helps to give it some body. And so for us, it's finding the balance, but without taking away and without adding anything. It's just kind of picking at the right times and having those different blending components that work really well together while keeping the flavors in balance, but also keeping the alcohol at a lower level. So I would say the piquette is the biggest tool for the lower alcohol, but also like some of the batches we're picking almost verjus early. And so that's, kind of a base of high acid, really low alcohol. You have the piquette for more the texture, the mouthfeel, and again, the low alcohol. And then we have sort of a more normal batch that kind of brings it all together and keeps it a wine.
Yeah. I feel like we're sort of combating assumptions here, right? That you really can have actually a Shiraz that's 8% alcohol and that sort of thing. I would love to hear from in the chat box from the audience, if piquette is sort of a something familiar to you. Is this the first time you're hearing it? I think that is, as Colleen said, an important part of this conversation. Kim and Paige and Roman, can you please share some tasting notes, some thoughts and feedback on this wine, on Colleen's wine?
Ladies first.
Well, I like the tartness. Again, it is a food-driven wine. It is on the tartar side of a red, but I love that, especially right now in the summer heat. I feel like this is just a nice, approachable red where you can drink it and you don't have to worry too much about it because it's 10%.
Exactly.
Maybe you don't want like 3 bottles of it, but you could have a few glasses and not really be super concerned. And it's something that's thought-provoking, right? It has all of the red wine elements that you want. It will go with the red wine foods that you think of, while still giving you a little bit of peace of mind.
Right, and it's for me it screams that Beaujolais sort of component, right? You've got a lighter red wine, acid focused, not heavy in tannins, that you could drink room temperature, you could chill it down and drink.
Yeah, I've been chilling this summer. Absolutely. Quite a bit, and it's great.
Which I from paying a small amount of attention, the Soms are like eating this stuff up right now. They want these low tannin, high acid reds because they're so versatile with food. So I think that is a whole other conversation. But the massive use of GR7, Geneva Red as a base is also very, I love the idea of being able to take a variety that is very regionally focused and might not have a larger market, and using that as sort of a jumping point to bringing red to other people in again, like an accessible way. I think that there's a lot of really interesting use of hybrid wines coming along, and it's nice to see a sophisticated version of one.
Absolutely. I've worked with Geneva Red before, and it can be a beast. So this is an amazing example. And I've also had a number of piquettes that leave something to be desired. So to be able to combine the two, to make something that's kind of crushable.
That's the idea. Like, we just want these to be approachable, really drinkable. It's a Finger Lakes red, so we're not trying to be a big red. It's meant to be light and lively, and a little, chuck it in the fridge for 5 minutes, and it's a great summer red.
Roman, go ahead.
Congratulations. It's perfect. Really love this.
Oh, thank you.
And sometimes it's more difficult to make an elegant wine really well balanced, or light wine well balanced, than a big one. And so really the tannins, the color, even that you got this color, it's fantastic. All around it, it's a beautiful wine. I like the Burgundy bottle, which, so you right away sending the message, it's not some Bordeaux type of heavier wine. Really nice. All light wines would be this good.
I agree. Colleen, is the association with Beaujolais that Paige mentioned, is that something that comes up a lot?
No, but as I say, we haven't really released, we've sort of released it as like a pre-release with just some like little pre-release stickers, because we're still waiting for our labels. So we haven't actually released this wine really. We've started pouring it in the tasting room a little bit, and so far people have been loving it, but I haven't heard the Beaujolais comparison, but I see that definitely. And that's a good way, if people aren't quite sure what to make of it, that's not a bad comparison. So
one nice thing is, I think it's important that you list these varieties, because you have to be bold about it rather than hide it. We also used a little bit of something sort of
No, for us it's fun to experiment with something new and
turn it all around and go for it. That to make that statement, I think, is the key. It's nice.
Oh.
Colleen, Rebecca had also shared some images while you were talking of the spritz in a can. Can you please talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so those are 3 of our Aussie session wines. So, generally speaking, we make most of our reds in Australia and most of our whites in the Finger Lakes. Obviously, I've shown a Finger Lakes red today, so there is some overlap. And so, these canned products are ones we're working on at the moment in Australia. So we just made them their 2021 harvest. So we just made them this year. Seb and I were over there sort of January through June in Adelaide, at the Adelaide Hills where he's from. And so these wines, again, they're, sort of 8.5% alcohol. And we had to call them spritzes because they're carbonated. So we're not allowed to call them sparkling wine. But they are just grapes and water added in the piquette process and sulfur. So it's the same concept. They're like a sparkling wine, but just meant to be, again, that more accessible. They're 250 ml cans. So cute little slim, like a Red Bull can basically. And, we, again, just like the idea of in Australia, bringing those to the beach, or, here in the Finger Lakes, bringing that on your boat, or, concert, whatever it is, just, having that little single serve, but sparkling wine. And even for wholesale, I mean, we've seen some, breweries that we sell wine to, or some bars who they don't go through enough sparkling to justify opening a 750 ml bottle every time somebody wants a glass of bubbles. And so I think cans are another way to kind of allow people to bring a Finger Lakes sparkling to a wine list without having to, open a whole 750 ml bottle. So
that's a super interesting idea. I hadn't thought about it that way before, Colleen. Thank you. You can see in the chat box that the idea of piquette is new to people, and it's also maybe something worth exploring as a writer, or an educator, or a marketing team. What role does this play in sort of this healthy alternative?
I saw there's a meme that cracks me up that I saw. I love wine memes. I think they brighten my day. But I saw one of this like basically giant tidal wave, and it says like piquettes coming out of 2021. And then it's a bunch of people on the beach who have no idea the tidal wave's coming. And it's like, don't know what piquette is. And I think it's true. So we'll see what happens, but
great. I know that we're just about time, but what I would love to invite the panelists to do by way of sort of wrapping up is to provide a little bit of perspective on tasting through these 4 products, and around this theme of healthier alternatives within New York State, that as an industry you're starting to produce, and have been producing, and some of the ways that this sort of represents who you are as an industry. Just as a review, we started with Roman's product here, the low row. Moving on to the Mimosa, the wine, the Spritzer made from Gruner Veltliner, Wölffer's Petit Rosé, which is the Verjus, 0% alcohol, and finally the Colleen Session Red with 10% alcohol. And one of the things that I personally find, and just to give you another moment to think about it, is so interesting is the packaging comparison and sort of that range that you're offering into the market, which I think is super interesting as well. In addition to the range of varietals that you're working with, apples that you're working with, in addition to grapes, all of those are. And you've heard about the healthy alternative sort of way that these different products are fitting into the lifestyle of today's consumer. So let me sort of invite you to wrap up sort of with a closing statement from each of you, or just a closing kind of feedback about how we spent the last hour. Kim or Paige, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah. So we're in New York State, right? So my entire career has been compared, oh, well, we like this wine from California. Can you show us what we would have? So we do at high acid and low alcohol well already. And I think that just expanding and looking at all the various options and different packages and ways we can do that is just kind of leaning into what our foundation is here anyway. So I'm excited to see where we go with that as a region.
Yeah, and sort of to piggyback off of that, I think that, because we are a region that thrives on high acid and aromatics, I think that exploring these other products is a great way to, trying to think of a nicer way to say this, but essentially to not dumb down what we do so well. I think that there's a lot of different avenues to explore that showcase the best parts of cool climate viticulture. And I think that focusing on, varieties, hybrids that do well here, or focusing on styles that showcase aromatics and acidity without relying on alcohol is a great way to, to have a presence at, and showcase what we do best as a region.
Paige, thank you very much for sort of naming that and for going right there. I agree with you. It's not a dumbing down process like this. I think one of the things that we've seen over the past hour is definitely how interesting and how nuanced, and there's different reasons and there's different layers to this for sure. And there's different opportunities worth kind of spending more time with, frankly. Yeah. So thank you, Paige. Roman, how about you? You have perhaps the more comprehensive or kind of longevity perspective. How has this tasting been for you?
Well, first of all, it's just fun that, I think the highlight for me was when you could see the adrenaline going up in these Zoom meetings when we smelled that fermentation flavor. I mean, that to me was the highlight of this whole meeting. And I hope that the participants felt all of a sudden this energy swing in the whole thing came alive. The whole Zoom meeting came alive. And I think that's what's nice. Unfortunately, New York is a big state, so we are far away from the Finger Lakes, so Long Island is all the way down here. But, we make great Rieslings upstate, great red wines here, many different things. And I think for New Yorkers to have these options is a fantastic choice. And it's a shame that we're sometimes so far away. One could do much more projects together and learn from each other and do easier, seminars and symposiums. But we do what we can on Zoom, I guess, now. And in the meantime, I think I'd like to see this boldness of people, we try something new. And there are these moments when it happens. Today, we have a New York Times article by Florence Fabricant for our new this rosé sparkling wine that we just launched a week ago and got the raving reviews. So we're really thrilled about it because it does still take these moments to break the glass ceiling, until we get a female president. Although it's the same, there are certain issues that are hard to overcome, and non-alcoholic, good quality non-alcoholic things are still something that we can all push forward, or low alcohol. So lovely to be on this. Thank you very much for having me.
One of my takeaways from the perspective both of a balanced glass and advocating for a healthy lifestyle when wine is at the center of our work is also my role as a journalist and as a writer, and tuning in to what's happening. And there's been so much that I've learned from this experience. And Roman, you're right. It's a time for sort of breaking barriers around a lot of things. And one of them is, breaking down some perceptions, misperceptions around low and no alcohol wines for sure. And I feel like the context that your various wineries are putting around healthy options. It's not just what you're putting in the bottle, it's sort of how you're building the context around what you're putting in the bottle that I think is also super valuable. Colleen, please, your final thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, I think these guys all summed it up really well. You know, my sort of takeaways are definitely, you know, New York is already in a great place to be making low alcohol wine. So as Kim and Paige mentioned, you know, we have high acid. Generally, you know, we're not getting to crazy high sugar levels. Things are more restrained in terms of alcohol and more, you know, fresh styles anyways. So that's a great starting point for these lower alcohol products. And then, you know, I think being in the grand scheme of wine, a newer sort of region, we're very adaptable. And I think people are willing to take risks and experiment and come up with new techniques and new products. And so it's a really exciting time to be making wine in New York. I think there's a lot of really interesting things happening, you know, including some of these things we looked at today. And so I think, you know, we're excited to be part of the local industry here. And, you know, it is a pretty collaborative, supportive, you know, region as New York State. So we're having fun along the way and trying to really showcase, you know, high quality, but still part of a balanced lifestyle, I guess, so some of these wines that you can make. So.
Yeah. Unlike so many of the Zoom tastings that I've been part of for the past year and a half or so, you know, we've kind of been looking historically, and we've been looking at, you know, kind of the, how things have been in terms of wine. And, you know, maybe there's a new vintage and that's new, but, you know, for the most part, it's been kind of based on what's happened before. Whereas with this tasting, I definitely have the sense that we're looking at what's coming ahead. We're sort of looking forward.
Also, one big point to make, this really helps us to become sustainable. There will be years where people have fire and frost and lose all the crop in France this year, in California fighting fires. We have the danger of a hurricane here, for example. So there could be a year where you may have to, you know, pick really early because you have a vineyard, you know, that's basically almost destroyed, and you better pick quickly what's left. And you may make a 11 volume % Chardonnay, and it could be delicious, but you're fighting the prejudice. So these are all these, I think, things that can happen. And then you have the next year where you made the best wine in the world because you had the best situation, the best weather from start to finish, and, you know, other areas had floods and rain and who knows what. So, and ultimately this will happen everywhere in the world. You know, there will be the fantastic year, and then you charge $300 a bottle because you made the best wine in the world, and the next year you may make 11 volume % Chardonnay.
What's super interesting too is that I feel like now you all are creating more of a space for that 11% Chardonnay. It's going to maybe you know, it seems like an oddball, as Roman was saying, but now you're sort of building the momentum for it and kind of creating the space for it on the shelf and in the marketplace. So. Okay, let me sort of transition. Rebecca or Ella, please let us know if there's anything else that we need to know before we wrap up. I noticed that you've been recording it and it's been live on Facebook. So maybe we can go back to it.
Yeah, well, just a big thank you to all of you attendees, and also to you, Cathy, and to Colleen, Kim, and Roman, and Paige, of course, for a terrific and really informative session. And to follow up on Roman, the energy was really palpable. So we really do, we learned a lot. So thank you for that. And as a reminder, we hope the attendees will join us again for our next upcoming event, which will take us back to our varietal series with Chardonnay, the other white grape, with Dan Belmont on Wednesday, August 25th at 4 o'clock. Thanks again, and we hope everyone has a great rest of your day.